The first order of business in addressing the unsustainable spending here in Washington and the looming debt crisis that hangs heavy over our country is the unchecked growth of waste, fraud, and abuse in our nation's entitlement program. This should be a nonpartisan, bipartisan issue. Like, we need to rein in spending. We ought to all agree with this category of wasteful spending. It's money taken from taxpayers and spent in ways that not only violate the laws, but common sense, while also undermining the promises made to the most vulnerable Americans. In Washington, promises to tackle waste, fraud, and abuse have become like New Year's resolutions. I thought you'd like this part. I mean, we all make promises to address it. We include them in all of our budgets, but we rarely, if ever, execute on them. So we proclaim them loudly, but quietly abandon them. And that's both parties. Both parties are guilty of that. And the cost of this inaction, though, is quite staggering. One major driver of this problem is what the Government Accountability Office categorizes as improper payments that were wrongly made or were made in the wrong amount. Last year alone, the GAO identified $31 billion in Medicaid improper payments. $31 billion is nearly the state budget of Arkansas, Delaware, Idaho, Vermont, New Hampshire, and South Dakota combined. And those are partial audits. The last full audits were significantly higher. The only two last full audits, I think it was 19 and 20, were significantly higher, almost 30 cents on the dollar improperly paid. In Medicaid, improper payments are often the result of costly combination of lax oversight and blatant fraud, unverified documents, false income claims, and missing household information that never gets flagged, let alone fixed. In the Supplemental Nutrition Program, or SNAP, which provides food assistance to nearly 42 million people, GAO identified $10.5 billion in improper payments for an error rate of 11.7%. I think that's doubled over the last few years. In SNAP, state governments frequently fail to check for basic eligibility criteria, whether it's citizenship, employment, finances, or even someone's identity. When the system fails to prevent fraud because of lack of accountability or the right incentives, the fraudsters gladly seize on that vulnerability. In Baltimore, a dozen store owners stole $16 million by trafficking SNAP benefits through fake retail transactions. Another example, in New York, a government worker used SNAP benefits to buy energy drinks and resell them to corner stores, pocketing almost $2 million. In Florida, a couple used nearly 700 stolen identities to obtain SNAP cards and then swap them for cash at a corrupt retailer. And the list goes on and on. These are not isolated incidents. They are symptoms of a system with inadequate guardrails and vulnerabilities that invite fraudsters to siphon funds away from those that the program was intended to serve. Through the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, this committee, the full House, and hopefully soon the Senate, have advanced reforms to restore accountability and ensure our entitlements actually serve the people they were intended to. Vulnerable Americans, not fraudsters, not schemers, and not people in this country illegally. By ensuring illegal immigrants, and importantly, the bill addresses some of the fiscal mismanagement that I just mentioned. One, ensuring illegal immigrants don't benefit from taxpayer-funded social services so that the safety nets are there into the future for our most vulnerable American citizens. Two, preserving and strengthening Medicaid by enhancing enrollment verification and ensuring only those who are legally eligible receive the benefits. Three, reining in state financing gimmicks like provider tax schemes meant to siphon away federal Medicaid dollars, which actually will drive up premiums and crowd out Medicare patients as we're paying to reimburse Medicaid patients at commercial rates. And as I mentioned to Brian and some of the panelists earlier, even in our One Big Beautiful Bill, we could do more, and I hope and encourage the Senate to do more in that regard. And capping, by the way, President Biden, President Obama called these things scams. This is a bipartisan opportunity to go big for the taxpayer and the folks that are counting on these programs. Just as important, the House One Passed Big Beautiful Bill restores the dignity of work itself. a moral imperative for humanity, I think we would all agree, but also essential for prosperity in this country. Able-bodied adults without dependents will be required to work or volunteer, pursue education, or train for at least 80 hours per month, with, of course, common sense exemptions. These are programs and policies that President Biden supported and Bill Clinton himself signed. That equates to less than a part-time job and reflects a basic belief that public assistance should serve as a bridge to self-sufficiency and not as a long-term substitute for work. The House passed reforms to SNAP will close all the loopholes that have allowed states, including California, Illinois, Nevada, and Washington, D.C., to completely waive their work requirements. In California, there is no able-bodied person who is on SNAP who's required to work among these other states. So we need to end the accounting gimmicks, close the loopholes, encourage work and self-sufficiency, and ensure benefits go to those Americans who truly need them. This will generate nearly $300 billion in savings, by the way, without taking a single penny from eligible Americans. On our current trajectory, our debt will reach $150 trillion by 2025 by any measure. This is unsustainable. I think both sides would agree. Interest payments on the debt crowd out other federal spending, making it impossible to respond to the challenges that future generations of Americans will face. The One Big Beautiful Bill takes a meaningful first step to right-size our bloated bureaucracy by reining in reckless spending and rooting out this waste and fraud and the abuse that's driving our nation deeper into debt. That's why it's crucial that my Senate colleagues only consider changes that will go further to advance fiscal reforms. Today, we're fortunate to be joined by three distinguished experts. I just introduced them. Thank you again for being here. This is an important discussion because it's central to reversing the curse. As James Madison said, a public debt is a public curse and the worst of its kind. And with that, I yield 5 minutes or as much time as my colleague, the ranking member, may need.